The All-Star break ending today, here's a few hitters, though, I look to buy as the break ends this week in fantasy baseball. The first guy, Jock Peterson of the San Francisco Giants. Peterson, he made the All-Star team this season, and he was off to a roaring start, but over the last few weeks here, he's really struggled and hasn't put anything together on the season. 17 homers, 43 RBIs, 36 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 252 average, and a 331 on base. But the last 2 weeks here for Peterson, really slumping. No home runs, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored, an 091 average, and a 259 on base. But over the last month as well, he really hasn't done much. 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 7 runs scored, stolen base, 206 average, and a 295 on base. So Peterson, we know he's a streaky hitter, and we know he's a guy that don't play a lot versus lefties, obviously, here for this Giant team. But we saw what Peterson did in the Braves World Series run last season in the second half. And I think with the Giants, he could have a second half here. Maybe a few days off, even though we know he played in the All-Star game, will help him, and he could get back on track. And he's one of the big bats in this Giant lineup. And right now, while he's struggling, he's definitely a hitter I could go out there and get, and I don't think I got to give up much at all. And especially that he's available in 30% of fantasy leagues. If he's on your wire, I would pick him up as well. But the last few games here for him, July 11th versus Arizona 0-3, July 13th versus Arizona 0-2, July 14th versus the Brewers 1-3 with a rib, July 15th versus the Brewers 0-2, and July 17th versus the Brewers 1-4 with a run and an RBI. So he's struggling big time here as Peterson. But he easily could turn things around, and we know he's been a streaky hitter throughout his career. So this week I would look to buy him on a discount. The next guy, Eloy Jimenez of the Chicago White Sox. So Jimenez, it's been an injury-riddled career for the most part here for one of the former top prospects 3-4 seasons ago in all the major leagues. Last season, only 200-plus at-bats for him with 10 home runs, 37 RBIs, 23 runs scored at 249 and 303 average on base. And this season, in a small sample size, only 66 at-bats, 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 197 average, and a 239 on base. So Jimenez, he hasn't gotten anything going this season here. And like I mentioned, he's been injured for the majority of the season and the majority of his major league career. So once he could get healthy and get things going, I think Jimenez could break out and definitely help fantasy owners. I know last season, in half a year, he pretty much played. The numbers weren't great, but this guy's a great talent. And if he just stays healthy, he could put up huge numbers, and we've seen it one season with him. So the last few games here for him, July 8th versus Detroit, 1-4 with a run, a rib. July 10th versus Detroit, 1-3 with a rib. July 11th at Cleveland, 0-3. July 12th in a doubleheader at the Guardians, 1-8 with an RBI. July 13th at Cleveland, 0-3. And then he sat out from the 14th all the way to the All-Star break here. And now with this leg injury, he should be good to go here as Jimenez, and hopefully he's healed up and ready for a good second half. And he's another guy. You don't got to give up much at all to get him. And then another thing on his side as well, he plays in a division with pretty weak pitching. The Twins' pitching's mediocre. Kansas City, their pitching's not great at all. Detroit, their pitching hasn't done much this season as well. And the Guardians as well. So right here, Eloy Jimenez, he's in a good division. He's struggling, and injuries have definitely been the problem here for him. But I think second half, if he stays healthy, he could turn it around. Then he's another low-risk, high-reward type of guy would try to make a move for. This week, the next guy, Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Betts, the first 2 months of the season, one of the best players in fantasy baseball. But the last month here, he's fizzled out on the season on 20 home runs, 47 RBI, 63 runs scored, a 265 average, and a 340 on base. So last season, Betts, he struggled mightily as well, I thought. 23 and 58 with a 264. But this season, his numbers are on better pace and a better par of surpassing those numbers he put up last season big time. But over the last few weeks here for him, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 7 runs scored. In the last month of the season, he really has been idle in fantasy baseball. His Betts, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, 10 runs scored, 226 average, and a 300 on base. I know he was banged up as well a little bit earlier in the month here, his Betts, but he's a guy that's been a streaky hitter the last couple seasons, even though we know he could be a top 10 talent in fantasy baseball. No doubt about it when he's right. July 10th versus the Cubs, 0-4 with 2 runs. July 12th at St. Louis, 1-4 with a run. July 13th at St. Louis, 1-6, a run and a rib. July 14th at the Cardinals, 1-4. July 15th at the Angels, 0-4 with a run. And July 16th at the Angels, 1-4. So we know Betts, he's the leadoff hitter here in this Dodgers lineup. And we know the Dodgers are still the best team in the National League. And knowing the Dodgers, they'll go out there with a couple weeks before the trade deadline on August 2nd and improve this lineup even more. So right now, while Betts has been struggling over the last month, you're still going to have to pay a decent price for him. But I don't think as high as you would have a few months ago here with the recent struggles and the recent little nagging injuries here and there. So this week would be the time to get him before he gets going again. And he's pretty much a guy that any owner wouldn't want to trade. The next guy I look to buy this week here is Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. So Mullins, I really haven't spoken about him at all this season here. Last season was a great year for him with the 30-30 club and a 290 average. But this year here, the numbers are down here for Cedric Mullins. 7 home runs, 36 RBIs, 49 runs scored, 19 stolen bases, 256 average, and a 317 on base. So Mullins, he'll definitely reach that 30-base plateau. But there's no way he's hitting 23 home runs with about 75 games left in the season. And over the last few weeks here, Mullins hasn't done much. No home runs, 1 RBI, 6 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 195 average, and a 250 on base. So last season, the 30 home runs definitely was a fluke here for Mullins. But he's still the engine to this Baltimore lineup. We know Baltimore, they went on a little bit of a tear early in the month, winning 10 games in a row and then losing 2 out of 3 in their last series before the break to the Tampa Bay Rays. The last few games here for Mullins: July 9th versus the Angels, 0 for 4. July 10th versus the Angels, 0 for 5. July 12th at the Cubs, 2 for 4 with a run in 2 bags. July 13th at the Cubs, 2 for 4 with a run. July 12th at Tampa, 1 for 5. July 16th at Tampa, 0 for 4 with a run in a bag. And July 17th at Tampa, 0 for 5. So right here, Mullins, he struggled over the last few weeks here of the season. But if you need stolen bases and runs scored, he's going to help you in that category. His batting average this season has just went down for whatever reason. But the funny part is this Baltimore team, they've been above 500 this season here. And Cedric Mullins, you think, would be more part of that, but he really hasn't been this year. So right now, while he's been struggling the whole year, and if you're looking for stolen bases and runs scored, he still would be a perfect guy to get on your team for those categories. And the final hitter I look to buy and trade for this week's Kyle Schwarber of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Schwarber, he's been the traditional power hitter this season here with a very low batting average and a high strikeout rate, and he just walks or either hits a home run. I know last season it was similar, but last year he finished the year hitting 266. This season, only 208 on the season, 29 home runs already, 58 RBI, 62 runs scored, 40 stolen bases, a 208 average, and a 317 on base. So Schwarber, he had a great month, 11 and 21, but he only hit 198, so he's just a pure leadoff power hitter for this Philadelphia Philly team. And over the last few weeks here for him, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, 0.75 average, and a 119 on base. So the home runs are great, no doubt about it. But if you're looking for a little bit more, it just seems like this season, Schwarber is going to be a 200, 210 hitter with probably 35, 40 home runs easily, maybe even 45 if he stays on this hot track. But right now, while the average is down, and besides the power, everything else is down here for Schwarber, I would still look to go out there and get him and have a guy just with pure power. And for points leagues especially, he'll pay big dividends as a guy who's going to hit home runs, and for points league, that's fine. So July 11th at St. Louis, 0 for 4. July 12th at Toronto, 0 for 4. July 13th at Toronto, 0 for 4. July 15th at Miami, 0 for 4. July 16th at Miami, 1 for 5 with a homer and a rib in that one. And July 17th at Miami, 0 for 4. So right here, this Philly team going into the break, they won 3 ball games in a row. Before that, they were struggling, losing 4 in a row before that Miami series. So right here, Schwarber, we know one of the best power hitters in the league here. And that's his specialty right now. But maybe some fantasy owners are frustrated that he don't do anything else except hit for power. So right now, with the low batting average over the last few weeks here, and even the home runs taking a little bit of a hit over the last couple weeks, this would be a perfect time to go get Schwarber, because he definitely could bump the average up, but I don't know if he will this season. And he's just maybe home run hungry. So that's a few hitters I look to buy low this week here as the All-Star break comes to an end today in the fantasy baseball season.